We are back here with Farah, and she and I just had a wonderful discussion about the birth of her daughter, Samira. And it was, oh man, I'm just saying, if you get a chance, please listen to her story because it's heart wrenching, and I'm grateful that she took the time to tell us that. So welcome back, Farah. We appreciate you and your time today.
Thank you. Thanks again.
And just to give a little bit of context, tell us when Samir was born and what had happened to her.
Yeah, Sarah was born 2 years ago, July of 2021, and she was born premature, a little past 20 weeks, because my water had broken about 3 to 4 weeks before that, and she lived for about an hour before she passed.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, you talked a little bit before in the birth episode that you were able to take a little bit of time off after she was born, and that was, and we kind of bemoaned the fact of, was like, well, she lived for an hour, and so you were technically able to go and have a maternity leave, but that might look different if she was stillborn. And that is hard to kind of think about sometimes because that happens to at least many of the women that we've talked
Um,
to. And but I want to talk a little bit about what that period right after she was born. How did that look for you in regards to your grief? How did you start working through that or feeling the feelings? Because it's a process, right?
yeah, yeah. So I knew like right away, like it was like within a couple days of coming home that like I needed to get a therapist. Like I needed
Yeah.
to talk to someone,
Yes.
and talk to someone. Like I had, like I said, good support and people I definitely did talk to, but I needed like an outsider and also someone like not that my friends and family would judge me, but like someone like I'm paying you if I need to cry for an hour, that's what I'm gonna do, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, so that was like priority number one. And I, like I said, I had this time off, so like I had nothing else to do. So I like dove into like finding a therapist and finding a support group with like, especially because I mentioned like I'm a single mom, so like I don't have a partner to share things with as they pop up. So I knew I needed to kind of like reach out for support a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was lucky that I did find an amazing therapist who I still see to this day. Like 2 years
Mhm.
later, she's still like
Mhm.
my regular therapist, and I did find a really special support group via Zoom. But at the time, it was still very COVID-y.
Yes, yes. And I was also gonna
But yeah,
mention that, the fact that you found a therapist during the pandemic is amazing because it was hard to get a therapist. Like, it was hard to find anybody that was available that wasn't totally maxed out because mental health was a big deal for a lot of people. It still
oh,
is, but during COVID was that was
oh
hard.
no, I've heard like people with I have good insurance, I think maybe, and maybe just luck, but like other people who have different plan or whatever, like the waiting list was like 6 months. I was like, no, like I need to talk to someone right now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I just lost my baby. I
yeah,
need it now.
yeah,
Okay, well, that is great.
yeah.
So you were able to see this therapist, on a regular basis? Like, how often were you
Yeah, in the
going in?
beginning, it was, like, weekly,
Uh-huh.
it was weekly, so and then, like, now it's just, every other week, so
Okay.
but, yeah, and then the support group, it was once again, like, the timing was just perfect, like, they have different, like, sessions for I think this is, it's called Sharing Parents,
Oh, uh-huh.
um, yeah, and it's, like, this great organization, so they have different types of, like, support groups, meetings, whatever, but the one it was, like, a workshop that was, like it was like a month long, and they would meet every Sunday for like 2 hours, and they had like a workbook. It was very organized, and you would like go with like a group that met like the same people every week.
Oh, that
And it was
is
on Zoom, but yeah.
but that's so nice to have somebody that people that regularly come with you and maybe have had a loss that's similar timing-wise?
Yes, yeah, it was all like most of the people had been a recent around the same time, and different reasons, different gestational ages and whatnot, but still like having the same people and then like having the organized like workbook where you kind of like work through things. Like
Yeah.
it was like truly life. I know I say like it's not exaggerating to say it was like life saving to have those supports. So
Yeah. I am curious, is there anything that you, learned, especially with your therapist as you worked with them? Anything that stuck out to you that has kind of a little bit of advice or a little nugget that has helped you as you've gone through this grief process?
Yeah, I mean, so many things, right?
So many things, of
A
course,
lot.
but just anything that like jumps out that is so helpful. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think besides, like, the permission to it's okay to be sad, like, and it's okay to cry, like, being not because I would always feel, like, really not bad, but, like, guilty or, like, I need to, like, hold it in or bottle it up or, like, not like, I need to control it and, like, that permission to, like, you don't have to control like, it's at some point, yes, like, especially initially, like, when I felt, like, so overwhelmed and I felt like I was drowning, it was, like it was just lovely to have that permission that it was okay to be sad and that like this was an awful thing. And so that was like initially. And then the main thing I learned or the thing that I needed, like one of the reasons I wanted a therapist was I knew I had to go back to work. And I knew
yeah,
I delivered where I work. I delivered
yeah,
in a room that I might have to have a patient in, like my baby was in that room.
yeah.
And so like I knew I was going to be triggered or like, like all these memories and I knew that I needed to work on that before going back to work so I could like be a professional nurse, not
Yes,
having a breakdown.
yes. You got 6 weeks of maternity leave, right? Just
Yes,
want to
I got
confirm
6
that.
weeks.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that was really that was really smart to start working on that because those there are triggers. Yes, exactly. Your workplace is essentially a trigger now. Like, and anything that she helped you with, he or she helped you with as navigating that transition back to work.
Yeah, so one of the most, like, I think, really important things was I was so scared of what it would be like going back, like,
Yeah.
so she suggested, like, if your work's okay with it, try, like, a couple weeks before going back, like, I'm sure there's a term for it, but basically, like, confronting it in little doses before you actually have to, like, take on, like, actually going back to work. So
Yes.
she was like, "Maybe you can just, like, go to work and say hi to coworkers or go pick something up or drop something off. Like, just be there without
Hmm.
having to, like, work or, like, do anything, like, no
Yes.
pressure. Like,
Yes.
just get, like, little baby doses."
Okay. Did you end up doing that a couple times or?
Did, did. I did it, I think only once. I felt like that
Okay.
was, like, enough to know, like, that it was gonna be I can manage it, like, because I think the unknown of, like, "Oh my gosh, am I gonna just, like, melt down when I get there?" I think that was almost scarier,
Yeah.
like, not knowing how I was gonna react to it.
Just that fear. Yeah. You're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this could be a hot mess and I don't want that to show up as a, like you said, a professional.
Yeah, and I feel so, lucky, blessed, whatever you wanna say that, like I don't know if it's because of the nature of my work that they really truly get it, how devastating it is to lose a baby, but, like, they were, like, so supportive in following, like, the loss of Samira, but then also when I was, when I did have got pregnant again, they were super supportive, and so that what that looked like was, like, they obviously, like, during COVID allowed me to just, like, come back and hang out at work without, like, actually, having to work, and then my therapist also suggested, like, if you can you, like, your first week or 2 back, can you just, like, not take a patient assignment? Like, just be there helping, doing like, still working, but not, like, being in charge of a labor.
Got you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and work, they accommodated that. They're like, "Yeah, sure, like, there's we can do that." And so,
Yeah.
we did that when I first got back, and then when it was, closer to her due date, when there was gonna be babies that were being born that should have been or, would
Wow.
have been Samira, like, I was like, "I can't do that either. Can we do that again?" And they're like, "Yes, of course." So,
That is
I feel like I
amazing.
said lucky.
That is amazing. I just that once again, even despite the fact that your workplace is a trigger, you there are so many pluses to also being in that place to have that support because they just sound amazing. Your coworkers sound amazing. I think
Yeah.
that's great. So generally, the transition back to work was okay because you kind of put these boundaries in place and kind of guidelines to help you through through that at least
Yeah, I
initial
think
period.
I think it definitely, it helped, all those things help. I still did so I did have panic attacks. I did
You did.
have a couple of them at work, a couple of them outside of work, and a panic attack, I don't know if people don't know what it's like, but it's this overwhelming, like, almost uncontrollable. It can be uncontrollable, I've learned since then, like, I've learned to identify when it's starting, and I can, like, take measures to like
Mhm.
um, to lessen it or to like like to try to prevent it. But at the time, um, I couldn't in some situations, and so that was really really hard.
Yeah.
It's like your heart rate increases, you get shaky, you feel like you can't breathe, you start like I would start crying uncontrollably, and so like luckily like it only happened a couple times, but that was really hard and like something I
Yeah.
continued to work on with my therapist. So
Yeah. I mean, we all we have all cried at work,
yeah, yeah,
coming back from, those and yeah, the anxiety and the panic that is associated with, returning back to work, and especially, like I said, in this environment, which is so, like, it reminds you of your daughter and the
yeah,
time there and the trauma associated with it. Yeah, I can see that being hard.
so, yeah. The first time was because I had taken like 6 weeks. I was like, it was only a couple weeks after I'd returned
Okay.
back,
Mhm.
and basically super fresh still, and there was a baby being born early. And I didn't realize until, like, I went to go help in the room, and it was, like, the same gestation as Samira would have been. And even though it was the baby was born early and was gonna go to NICU, it, like, survived and was alive. And it was, like I was like, "Oh my gosh, this if I had still been pregnant, this could have" like, I had to step out of the room, and I just, like,
Yeah.
started it was just, like, awful, like and, the family was so happy, and I was so happy for them, but I was like, "That could have, should have, would have been," anyway, all those things. So that was, like those situations were really hard. It was really I know it sounds weird, but, like, once I got past her due date, it was
Mm.
much easier because, like, all every time I was in a delivery where it was, like, close to her due date, it
Yep.
was really hard for
Yeah. No, I think that's not I don't think that's weird at all. I feel like we track time, right? We track time, our brains and our bodies track time and to have those milestones and once you're past that, yeah, that is yeah. I totally get where you're coming from. I was like, "Yep, mhm, yeah, I can
yeah,
see why that
yeah,
would be hard."
yeah,
And so I'd love to chat because I know you've mentioned before that you decided to get pregnant again after, and I am wondering what your time frame looked like and also how you made that decision again because like when you get so crushed, I just feel like that's what it is. You just get crushed when you lose a baby and you're just devastated and you're like I don't know where I'm coming back from like I don't know if I can do that again and or have
mhm.
that possibility of doing that again. Walk me through your process and like what went through your mind as you were making that decision.
Right, like, I feel like it could go either way. Like, you could be, like, so traumatized that you're like, "I cannot do this again."
Yeah.
I can't, and but, like, I didn't have any living children, and I knew for me, I had this love to give, and
Yeah.
I needed to give it to a living child. Like I love Samira, but like all my love for her was just sadness. Almost, it was just like this grief, and it was like I was like, I can't live like that. I had this desire to be a mom. I still wanted to be a mom to a living baby. Like I wanted to
Mhm.
experience all that is, to experience with that. And so I kind of became almost a little obsessed. Probably it was probably a little unhealthy that I was like, I need to get pregnant. In my head, I was like, I need to get pregnant before. I don't know why we fixate. Yeah, what you said earlier, like we kind of fixate on these dates. But like I need to get pregnant before her due date because if her due date comes
Oh. Uh-huh.
and I'm not pregnant and or like like I just like I'm gonna be like I need that to get through that. Does that make sense? Like
Yes.
okay,
It's a little
like
bit like a support, just like yes, I don't know, like, you're completely right, like, there's things that you're just like, "I need something to look forward to, something to hold on
yeah,
to," because,
yeah,
you know it's going to be hard. I
yeah.
I don't know, yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Because like her due date was also it was like the beginning of December, and so it was like I had all these visions. I love Christmas and like all
Mm,
these visions of like our first Christmas, like and so that I knew the holidays would be really
yeah,
awful. So anyway, so I had that, and then when I talked to the doctors, I had one doctor that said like 3 to 6 months after delivery, and one said 6 to 12 months, or like even like a year and a half, and I was like, oh, I cannot wait that long. Like
yeah,
I like in my
yeah,
heart, like I just couldn't. Like and plus I was getting old. I'm older, like so I knew like I couldn't bear the thought of waiting. So anyway, so I reached back out to the same donor because I also really wanted Samira to have like a full sibling. Like I wanted my
Oh,
future child to be, like, the same donor, like, to have,
yes.
like, I don't know, that
Same
same.
parents, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, and we did do genetic testing on her, and just to rule out anything, and there was nothing that came up, so it wasn't, like, a genetic issue that caused,
Mm.
the early delivery, so I felt pretty comfortable, and the donor was very, very kind and very supportive and was like, "Of course," and, was able to donate again, and I think I started trying only, like, a couple months after.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so pretty like, 3 months after, I lost Samira, so
And
pretty
you felt
pretty
and
soon.
yes, how did you feel about that timeline?
I think I was still obviously in the depths of, like, grief, and I knew it was probably too early, like, I knew logically, like, in my brain, I
Yes.
knew it was probably too early, but, like, in my heart and, I just it's
And
something that I needed to do. So,
yeah. I don't
yeah, and it
I
took yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I was like, I think well, I there are physical changes that happen to you after you give birth, right? I mean, your milk
Mhm,
comes in, you are meant to, like, be nurturing. You're meant to be
mhm.
feeding a baby. I mean, like, and so, like, they talk about, like,
And
these
maybe
empty
maybe that's
arms.
it. Maybe it's, like, my hormones was like, "There needs to be
Yeah.
a baby."
I think it totally makes sense because I was in the hospital and I was holding my son and I just remember I was like, "We need to have another baby." Like, it
Mm,
was like
mm,
a thought
mm.
that was in my brain.
Yeah,
I was like, "I better not
yeah,
tell Lee because he's probably going to think I'm crazy town." And so I
yeah,
just needed to
yeah,
calm it down for a second.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Anyway, okay,
and
so you felt okay about I mean, logically, you're like, "Oh, this might be too
yeah,
soon,"
yeah,
but you felt like it was okay to try.
yeah, yeah.
Did you get pregnant pretty quickly, or how did that look?
I did comparatively, about 3 tries, 3
Okay.
months, but in my head, I was like, "It's gonna be the first month because I want Samira's gonna send me her sibling," and so, like, when I got that first negative, it was, like, devastating because I really thought, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like I said, you make things up in your head, so I still feel very fortunate that I got pregnant as quickly as I did, and how it works out, it wasn't her due date was the 9th,
Yeah.
and I got pregnant a couple weeks after that, but technically, how pregnancy how they count it from the day of your first period?
Yes.
It was I don't know if this is TMI, but it was the 7th. So even though I wasn't technically pregnant by dates, I was pregnant by her due date. So it
Yeah.
kind of like it was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is like"
Was kinda
I don't know.
meant.
It was yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I found out I was, pregnant, on New Year's Eve. And
Oh,
so it was like this yeah, it was like this like wonderful I was scared, but I was just like really I was like, this is what I needed to start the year, like
yeah.
with some hope.
With some yeah, and that's what you need after a loss. You were with the same doctor. Oh, you did stay with
Mhm.
the same doctor, right? Your same
Mhm.
OBGYN? Okay.
Mhm.
And did you, I'm assuming this pregnancy looked quite a bit different in regards to, like, watching it and checking things a little bit more often, or how did you treat
Yeah.
this pregnancy?
Very, very different. I was so anxious and so scared,
Yeah.
still grieving. It was an awful part. I mean, emotionally, mentally, whatever. It was the worst, really. I was like, I'm never going to be pregnant again like this. Um, I had, yeah, I imagined every day, I probably imagined her dying, which is like not a great mental state to be in. So yeah, it was awful. But in terms of the medical care, we took all the precautions. Like I got started on progesterone pills and then the
Oh,
shot after a
yeah,
certain week, and then I actually did get a cerclage placed preventatively at 14 weeks.
you did.
Um,
Okay. Wow, they were on
so
top of it. You probably were like, "Let's just do all the things."
yeah, like the cerclage, they're like it's we don't really know what happened or why,
Mhm,
and so it's kind of your call. Like there's risk to it, right? Like
mhm.
it's whatnot. But I was like, I need to do everything so I don't question anything. If that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
so all the things I want done. And I probably went to the other way of like physical activity. I did no physical activity. It's like it was just like I yeah, it was not an easy pregnancy, and her physically, it was actually not bad, but,
Mhm.
mentally, it was really hard, and I did have, one of the women from my support group was also pregnant with her,
Her
um,
yeah.
we call it rainbow baby or
Mhm.
whatever term you want to use. And so she was like, we texted. She was also really anxious. We probably weren't great for each other because we were both like these anxiety balls. So we would like text each other almost like every day. Like it, it was so lovely though to have someone
Yeah.
pregnant at the same time who also had experienced something similar who
Mhm.
got it because no one
Mhm.
else could really understand like what you're going through and
Yeah.
like
If you were trying to tell the level of anxiety you actually are experiencing when with a pregnancy after loss, it's like people are just not they just don't understand that.
yeah,
Like they
yeah.
so even though and even though you were both balls of anxiety, I think it is that was actually a really ideal situation.
Yeah,
Um so that yeah, just sometimes you just are like I am feeling crazy about this and yeah. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I wanted the way you said it was, yeah, it was really hard, and I was like, I will just be completely honest, it sucked, like, it was hard. It was really, really hard, and I don't think people realize that because 'cause they're just so overjoyed, they're like, "You're pregnant again!
yeah, yeah.
It's gonna be great!"
Mhm.
And then they're like then it's you don't have any guarantee still, right?
No, yeah, and I feel like they're more almost other people were more excited than I was. If,
Yeah,
like
yeah. Completely, because they just don't know what you had gone through, like, the emotional, toll it's taken on you, and then just hoping for this baby to be born alive and to live.
yeah, 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 literally, I just be alive, like, yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
When was your other daughter born? Can you remind me?
uh, yeah, she was born, so August of 2022, so
Okay,
about a year and a month after.
okay, and
She just turned 1 at
just
this
turned 1. Okay. Uh, so she just turned 1, and so you are going to be celebrating did you end up celebrating Samira's birthday then? Um, right?
Yeah, so
Her first
Samira,
birthday.
she was born in July,
July,
so
yes,
yeah,
okay.
so, we don't I don't do, like, a big thing,
Yeah.
just kinda, like, at home, like, I light a candle and, I go to, like there's a spot nearby, like, kind of in the, like a little bit of a drive, but, like, in the woods where, like, I
Mm,
first went, like, kind of after she was born that I kind
yeah,
of would go to, so, yeah, so, like, I kinda make it a tradition to do that every year.
that's great.
Um, yeah,
That's nice, and you've mentioned before that you feel her in nature, so
yeah,
I bet that is really a beautiful spot. So I am curious, because you are a single mom and you have family, but they're kind of a little bit farther away. It sounded like you were super supported by your friends, and I just like to kind of bring a few things up just so that people can have some ideas if they're trying to support somebody. But what
mm,
were some things that were really super helpful for you, that people did and that they said, that just kind of are things that were great on your radar?
yeah, yeah, definitely after Samira died, like, I had amazing, like, just yeah, friends, even though, like, I don't have, like, a lot of people, like, in the city I live, like,
Yeah.
the amount of cards, like, I still have them in my little box, like, just cards and, like, little, like, things, like, like I said, like, the friends who, like, did a tree, in memory of her or, or, like, I got some, like, jewelry or, like, food, just, like, ways to reach out that didn't require me to respond back. That
Yes.
was, like, in the immediate aftermath, like, right afterward, like,
Yes.
that was the most helpful, and, like, definitely the cards, like, and the cards
Mm,
that didn't only include me, but included Samira,
her.
you know? Yeah. That was, like that really touched my heart, like, more than people could understand, like, that they were including her in it, in
Yeah.
whatever way. I feel like that was really helpful, and then also just what was also helpful is, like, when I did meet up with people in person, it's, like, being okay with being uncomfortable, right? Like, it's
Mm,
never it's never great to be around someone who's crying or sad, but, like, just, like, sitting there and just being present and, like, I think people have said, like, I've heard other people say, like, they don't have to say anything really, like, just being there and letting me cry or talk about her or, especially, like I said, in the immediately afterward, that was, like really helpful.
Yeah. I wanted to point out something because this is obviously we always want people there to support. One of the things that you said is to be able to sit with the uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable sitting with
Mhm,
somebody that's crying or having a panic
mhm,
attack. Who knows? I mean, like, right?
mhm,
You could be in the throes of just some really rough stuff and being okay with the ugly of grief, right? There's some
mhm.
just ugliness that happens when you're crying. At least I'm an ugly crier, so it's not ever
Yeah,
pretty.
yeah, no,
And
no.
so it's nice when people will just be okay sitting, holding your hand or just being
Mhm,
there too. Just
mhm,
not
mhm.
letting that person be alone. I think it's
Yeah. Most people have not seen pictures of Samira, but, like, a couple friends and a couple coworkers, like, who weren't there, like, who I knew would be okay with it, like, I was like, "Do you wanna see?" Because I'm proud of her, and I am, like, I think she's perfect. I know, like I said before, she's not what a typical, full-term baby looks like, but to me, she's perfect, and I also found it really, healing for myself to be able to share those pictures with those people who are really close to me,
yeah.
and, like, because it's my baby, and, like, that's normal for you to
Yes.
wanna show.
It's completely normal. You're like, "Look how cute they are." You send out a birth announcement, all the things. And yeah, like that opportunity is kind of stolen away because she passed away. You do you know what I'm saying? So I think that's cool that people were wanting to or willing to look at when you were showing her picture.
Yeah.
Anything that you felt like that anybody said or did that you would maybe say, maybe stay away from that." um in all of this. You don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean,
you don't call anybody
like,
out, of course, but just
no, of
just
course
so people
not.
are a little bit more aware.
Yeah, for medical staff, I remember my postpartum visit.
Oh,
I don't know if this person was new, but it was like a medical assistant or nurse assistant, whoever taking vitals, and it was a postpartum visit, right? But obviously I didn't have my baby with me, but she still. I remember she was like in the middle about to take my blood pressure, and she was like, "Oh, are you breastfeeding?" And I lost it, and then my blood pressure went up, and it was like sky high. But I was just like, "Oh my!" Like, no, it's like, "Come, girl." I don't think she's ever done that again. Yeah,
yes.
it was a one and done mistake, but it was like that was really awful, like, and very, very triggering.
Yeah.
Be like, "No, because my baby died. I'm not breastfeeding."
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so for
Whew.
medical professionals, like, please look at the chart, especially if people come in for a postpartum visit without a baby.
Yeah, there's maybe a reason. There's
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe a reason. And then in terms of, like, something that people say that like, I know for some people it's helpful for them, but for me, the phrase, like, "everything happens for a reason" is not helpful to me. Like, it's,
Me
um
either. Yeah.
yeah, because there will never be a reason, like, that she's not here. Like, there's never a good enough reason that, she died. So, I think people say it being helpful, and they still say it. I don't know why, but, like, because I think it comes from a place where they think it's helpful, but I just nod and let it pass, but it's like, it's really kind of hurtful, like, that you think that my baby died for a reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. That is not a great phrase.
Yeah.
People don't use it. That's what I say. Okay. And is there like I've really appreciated just your candidness about this because it has been just so interesting to see, especially since you were an L&D nurse who happened to actually deliver right there at your place of work essentially because you could I mean that's where your hospital is and that's where you get care. So it makes sense to do that. How have you transitioned even with work? Has that been okay even a couple years out? Has that been still okay, or is it still as triggering as it was?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in one aspect, so one thing that I thought was going to be really hard was the room, right? The room
Mhm,
that she was
mhm,
born, the only
mhm.
room that she was ever alive in, that she died in, like, that room, right?
Yeah.
But now, 2 years later, like, I actually, like, and luckily it's a room, it's like our far away room that we don't use a lot. So that's, like,
Oh,
nice. It was very thoughtful when they put me in there.
yeah.
But I actually, like, when I was like, I've come far enough that, like, I feel kind of close to her in that room. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's not a scary, sad thing. It's like she this is the place where she was, and, like,
Yeah.
I almost feel, like, in a way lucky that I get it, like, when I need to or want to, I can just because it's usually empty, like, I can just
You could
go in that room and just, like,
huh,
remember or feel close to her. So, like, if you'd asked me that, like, a month after she died, I would have been like,
right,
"No." But
right. It's
yeah, but now, yeah.
it's kinda changed a little.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's that is very interesting. And yeah, your grief changes, like, and it changes you and changes, yeah, how you picture how things went. And I like that you just feel close to her there. I just that's pretty cool.
yeah, me too. Did not think I would get there, but in terms of, like, taking a patient, like, in terms of, like, my work, I feel lucky that at my hospital, like, you choose your assignments, like, if
Mm,
you like,
mhm.
whether you want, like, labor or postpartum or like, all the different stuff, and, so if I don't, like, if I don't want to, I haven't had to, like, really, take a patient yet, well, until recently, like, going through a loss because,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know how I would be, but I did, just like I said, I think I told you,
yeah,
like, recently, like, and it was when I first, like, raised my hand for the assignment, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this. I can do this," like, because I want to in the future me sees, like, this is something that obviously I feel very passionate about, right? And I wanna
mhm.
be more involved, but, like, I need to make sure I'm in a place that I can do that,
That
right?
yeah, okay.
So I felt kind of ready recently, and I did. Then as soon as I, like, took the assignment, I could feel my heart rate, like, going up, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay," like, I wasn't sure, but I was able to, like, with, like, the coping strategies that we have, like, able to basically talk myself off the ledge, like, to be like, it's like I didn't have a full-blown panic attack, and so I was
Yeah,
able to keep that patient, and in the room, I was able to, like, really, I feel like, be professional, like, obviously, caring and whatnot, but it
yeah,
was really, once again, like, helpful that I, like, feeling like I could do this and not, like, be so triggered, at least, in the room, and I do feel like I'm sure, like, one day I still will say the wrong thing to because everyone feels things and takes things different. So I'm like, that's my fear. Like, I don't want to be that person that says the wrong thing, and I'm sure I will. But, like, I do feel like, in a sense, though, I have more knowledge of
yeah,
what to do, what not to do, how to be a good nurse to these families, just because of going through it. So
yeah. I appreciate the fact that you are kinda taking your time too, though,
yeah,
just to understand that you can't jump in right away
yeah,
to help when when you're not in a position to help, right? Like,
mhm,
emotionally. Yeah, I was thinking about when you were talking about that, I was like, "Oh, I wanted to start this podcast, like, to the day after
mhm.
Brandon passed away because we were podcasters before, this podcast,
Oh, okay.
and it was funny that like, Lee had to tell me once again to calm down a little just because he's like, "We let's just give it some time," and it was really helpful to have that period of time to heal and to be in a good place ourselves in order to help other people.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's I think that was smart to just be aware and take your time too because you know, healing takes
Yeah.
time.
Because I feel like, yeah, like, when you're, like, a drowning person, you can't help another drowning
No.
person, and that's how
No.
I felt. Like, I felt like I was drowning. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Farah, this has been such a great conversation. I really have appreciated your insight and your sweet story of Samira. I think it's just a really unique and beautiful situation that she was born into, and like what a wonderful mom you are to her.
mm,
Is there anything else that you would like to say about her, or any last little bit of advice you wanted to share with us?
no, just I wanted to thank you again for letting me share her story, and, oh, I did wanna just say when we're, I guess, on closing is there's this really beautiful video quote, about grief that I really connected to.
Hmm.
Um, it's, the actor Andrew Garfield,
Oh
and
yes.
he was doing an interview. He was doing, like, an interview for one of his movies, but then his mom had recently passed, and so he talks about the grief process and, like, people he basically was like, "I always wanna talk about her," like, and, like, "If I cry, it's okay because it's just all my unexpressed love," you know?
Yeah.
is, comes out as tears sometimes, but I hope, you'll have to watch it if you are interested, but it's basically like, I hope I always have this grief because it's just because I love her, like, it's my love, and,
Yeah.
like, grief changes, right? Like, it changes how it looks, but, like, there's always gonna be grief for our babies, but,
Yeah.
especially as you move forward, like, I'm hoping that the grief that I have isn't just pure sadness, but it changes into, like, I don't know, like, talking to my, like, living daughter about her sister,
Yeah.
about and that makes me feel better about it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Just talking about your family and making sure that you're together.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's lovely. Farrah, thank you once again so, so very much. We appreciate all you have shared with us today.
thank you so much, Winter.